News Talk 94.5 WPTI. You're listening to the Wealth Guardians Show with Doug Ray, helping you retire the job and keep the paycheck. With me is Brice Payne, and this morning we're talking about the biggest money mistakes in retirement planning, take two. How you doing, Brice?
I'm doing well, Garrett. How are you?
Doing all right. I think we got a Memorial Day holiday coming up. I hope it's meaningful for everyone out there.
It is, yes. You and I were talking about this before the radio show. My father sacrificed his life for our country in the Air Force back on September 9th, 1969, when I was 10 months old. And you had I was learning from you, you have a member of your family who has a good story that you want to share here for a minute.
Yeah, we do, Brice. I mean, at this point, at least for me, it's a relatively distant family member, but would like to take the time to recognize Virgil G. Ray, United States Marine Corps fighter pilot. He was a second lieutenant. Virgil was an interesting individual. He started out as an enlisted Marine on the maintenance side of the FU Corsair. Had a knack and interest in flying and was recognized by a certain major called Gregory Pappy Boyington, and got qualified, got his Naval Aviation wings, and he was a founding member of the Black Sheep Squadron with Major Boyington. So
absolutely amazing. It
was amazing. Unfortunately, Virgil was lost. His official designation is MIA, Missing in Action. On October 13th, 1943, Virgil took off on what was supposed to be a non-combat related mission. He was just running some reconnaissance and actually a mail run, if you believe it or not. He went out solo that day. He was designated by Pappy Boynton on 2 weeks of light flying duty because he had actually seen some significant combat action in the previous month. Quite a few nasty furballs with the Japanese in the month of September. So this was kind of keeping his flight status active, but just a little less demanding mission. And unfortunately, he never returned from that flight. There were some pretty bad storms in the area during that week, and then also there was some increased Japanese air activity as well in the area. So no one's quite sure exactly what happened, but he was lost over the Solomon Islands, October 13th, 1943.
Well, Virgil and William Norton Payne, we thank you both for your service. And this Wealth Guardian Service Salute this week, since it is Memorial Day, we're going to send that out specifically to the families of those who have lost somebody who, as families, you've made that sacrifice. So we hope you have a solemn and meaningful Memorial Day this weekend as well. And thank you for sharing that, Garrett. That was it's a very great story to tell, and I love the fact that you have all that information just right there in your head. I just asked you out. You didn't know I was going to ask you any questions about that, and you just had it right there in your head. So Thank you for sharing that. All right, let's go ahead and get started on our topic this week, the money mistakes in retirement planning, take two. So we covered this topic 2 weeks ago. And as I was looking through what do we want to talk about this week, I thought I saw all the cutting room floor bits of this. This is still another really good episode here. Yeah. So let's just keep going with this. So where did we start off this week, Garrett?
Yeah, Brice. So we didn't even quite finish to some of the things that we see that we could make improvements upon when talking about retirement planning. And one of the things that I think a lot of folks kind of hesitate to discuss and plan for is ignoring long-term care costs.
Okay.
Obviously we hope that that's a situation that we can avoid. But if we find ourselves in a situation where, let's say that one, or if it's a household, both spouses have a cognitive decline, but not necessarily a physical decline.
Yep.
There's quite a bit of medical care that's needed, skilled nursing care to take care of someone with mental decline, dementia, that sort of thing. And it can be quite costly. And we have seen, unfortunately, a few cases where that is the one thing that can throw quite a monkey wrench into a retirement plan if it's not properly cared for. So just curious about some of your thoughts on, what are some steps we could take to take that precaution
Right.
and be prepared.
Well, so we do about, here at the Wealth Guardians, we do about 50 financial plans, which are detailed plans that track all monies coming in through retirement, the assets that somebody has, the potential growth on those assets, and the expenses that somebody has. And perhaps in certain years, there's cash flow anomalies, like we're buying a house, we're selling a business, we've got an inheritance. We track all of that. We know a lot of the data. Some of the data is assumptions, like what's the average rate of return going to be? What's the average cost of inflation going to be? So we have to use some assumptions in there. And if, let's say that somebody has $500,000 by age 85, they start off
Right.
with $1 million and they have $500,000 by age 85, 90, whatever you pick the year.
Yeah.
You could adjust the rate of inflation up a little bit. You could adjust the rate of return down a little bit. You could adjust the cost of living adjustment on Social Security down a little bit. And none of those things, in all likelihood, are going to devastate the retirement plan. I mean,
Yeah.
it might take them from $500,000 to $300,000 in a certain year, but it doesn't blow it up.
Right.
But
Exactly.
when we start talking about long-term care expenses, the average room in a private room in North Carolina right now in a skilled nursing facility is around $7,000. That's
Per month?
per month.
Wow.
So
That's steep.
That's steep.
Yep.
As you said, if you're in there for cognitive reasons, you're not in there for a year before passing.
Yeah.
You might be in there. Now, if it was something else, yeah, it might be a year. But if you're in there for cognitive reasons, you could be in there for, it's not unreasonable to say 7-8 years.
Yeah. Jeez.
It happens longer, but let's just say that you're in there for 5 years at that. That comes to $420,000.
Yeah.
So if that person had thought they were going to have $500,000 left by 85,
Right.
and maybe their spouse is living a few years longer, that's both yours and the spouse's money that's
Right.
being used up for that. So this does not just impact you; this impacts your spouse as well.
Yeah.
So that is the one thing that can blow up. And we here at the Wealth Guardians help our clients plan for that, and
Yeah.
we see what kind of asset-based long-term care insurance out there, what the premium could be on that, and what kind of benefits they could get from that. And if this is something that a lot of our clients have seen this happen with their parents or whatnot,
Right.
or their neighbors' parents or whatnot. They see them taking care of them, and they come to us, or we bring up the subject, and they say, we absolutely want to look into this more because we don't want the same thing to happen to us and our children.
And our children.
Right.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it is a protection, not for you. It's a protection for your spouse, and it's a protection for your kids. So that is one of the things, the money mistakes in retirement planning, that somebody can fail to make. That's a great one, Garrett. That is really a significant one.
Yeah.
So if you're just tuning in, you're listening to the Wealth Guardians with Garrett Ray and Brice Payne. And this week we are talking about the biggest money mistakes in retirement planning, take two. We covered this topic a couple weeks ago. We're going to continue with it. And Garrett, what is the second thing that we're talking about here in this episode?
Yeah, boy, this one can kind of strike, really even the best of people. And this topic is failing to regularly review and update your retirement plan. What we see is people tend to sometimes work in spurts of energy or spurts of activity, and they'll have a month or two where they're really buckled down, really serious about kind of getting their finances in order, and they work really hard. They have a few conversations. They feel good about it. Whew, okay, that's done. And then we just don't look at it for 3 or 4 years. But life happens all along the way. Things change. Perhaps you moved. Maybe we've got a large expense, a daughter getting married or something like that. That old financial plan that is now 4 years old hasn't been adjusted, hasn't been re-examined for how life has occurred over the past couple of years. And so, that's one thing that at least here in our practice we're very passionate about is we want to meet with our clients at a minimum at least once per year. Even if it is just, kind of a meeting where, hey, not much has changed, that sort of thing. We at least want to know what's new in your life, what's new with, things that we're seeing in the markets, that sort of thing, and just have that be on the same sheet of music. It's to us, it's a necessity, but we see it ignored over and over.
Well, yeah, we like to do that. We reach out to each and every one of our clients and say, hey, it's time for our annual review. Let's go ahead and update all the numbers. Why? One, because we're fiduciaries. We're obligated to do that.
That is true.
But it makes sense. And if you, let's say that when you first do a financial plan and you put in all those calculations, and one of those calculations was we're spending $4,000 a month. Okay, you put that calculation in. And if that's the last time you ever see your financial advisor, well, let me back up. And you spending $4,000 a month meant that at age 85, 95, whatever the year, you had X amount of dollars. And that was a successful retirement plan for you in your book. And then you go away and never talk to that financial planner again.
Right.
And maybe you weren't spending $4,000 a month. Maybe you were spending $4,200 a month. And wouldn't you want to know what kind of impact spending $200 more a month for 25 years has on your retirement plan? I'll tell you, it's significant.
It's significant, yeah.
It's significant. It is more significant than you think it is. So that is why we do that. And what are we going to update? We're going to update Social Security.
Yep.
We're going to update the expenses. We're going to update those one-time cash flow things. All of those things we're going to update. And plus, we're going to reevaluate your risk tolerance as well. It might be that, hey, you know what? I thought that I was comfortable with this type of risk when we first got into this, Garrett and Brice. But the bumpiness that I see in the markets these days, I'm reevaluating that. I'm not okay with this kind of bumpiness. All right, then we readjust your portfolio to make you sleep better at night. It's
I mean, just to give kind of 3 data points, someone who's age 42, 52, and 62 typically have very different risk tolerances.
Exactly. All right, well, we'd planned to try to get 3 of these out of here in the first segment, and we only got to 2, so it is time for us to get to the trivia question here, as we do every week. But before that, I just want to invite anybody out there who heard something that struck a nerve with them in our first segment here. Reach out to us. Our phone number is 336-392. Our phone number is 336-391-3409. And we'd love to sit down with you. There's no cost or obligation, just to meet with you and see what kind of service or help we could provide in planning for your retirement. Okay, Garrett, trivia question time.
All right.
I think you know what the subject might be because we're topical here, right?
Yes, we are.
All right. 3 years after the Civil War ended on May 5th, 1868, that's when the Civil War ended. So 3 years after the Civil War ended on May 5th, 1868, the head of the GAR, Grand Army of the Republic, an organization of Union veterans, established Decoration Day, what's now known as Memorial Day. Major General John A. Logan declared the day should be May 30th.
Okay.
Why was this later time in May selected as opposed to that May 5th? That's our trivia question. I want you all to think about that. The answer is in there. The answer is in there. Now, so we're not looking for the why was that specific date, but why later in May as opposed to earlier in May, seeing that that's when the Civil War actually ended. Okay, well, we'll get around to the answer to that trivia question on the other side of this short break. This is Brice Payne. With me is Garrett Ray. The show is The Wealth Guardians, helping you retire the job and keep the paycheck. And this is News Talk 94.5 WPTI. News Talk 94.5 WPTI. You're listening to The Wealth Guardian Show with Doug Ray, helping you retire the job and keep the paycheck. I'm Brice Payne, along with Garrett Ray this week. And in this second segment, we're going to continue talking about the biggest money mistakes in retirement planning, take 2. Now, before we get to our trivia question that we had for Garrett, I've got 2 questions for you. And I have these same 2 questions every week, and I'm going to keep asking them until I hear from you. A, are you looking forward to your retirement? B, do you want to make sure you're making the best financial decisions for your retirement? Well, if you answered yes to those questions, then I've got great news for you. We here at the Wealth Guardians offer a no cost, no obligation, second opinion / review of your retirement plan, including a deep analysis of your assets, your investment portfolio, your insurance policies, your income needs, risk tolerance, risk exposure, tax mitigation strategies, legacy goals, and the fees you are currently paying. And our goal is simple. We want to help you lower your fees, align your risk, and improve your overall retirement picture so you can retire the job and keep the paycheck. But the ball is in your court. You have to give us a call. And to do that, you got to pick up the phone and you got to push these numbers in this sequence: 336-391-3409. That's 336-391-3409. Give us a call or visit us at thewealthguardians.com to set up your financial plan review with Doug, Garrett, and myself today. And as I always say, the markets aren't going to wait for you. All right, let's go ahead and get to that trivia question. on this Memorial Day weekend. Garrett, 3 years after the Civil War ended on May 5th, 1868, the head of the GAR, which is the Grand Army of the Republic, an organization of Union veterans, I know it's a great name, established Decoration Day, which is now known as Memorial Day. And back at that time, Major General John A. Logan declared the day should be May 30th. Now, the question is this: I'm not concerned about the exact specific date, May 30th, but why was the later time in May selected to honor our fallen and missing rather than earlier on in May when the Civil War ended? Why that change?
Okay, I'm going to take an educated guess here.
Here comes the logic and deductive reasoning that I love about Garrett here.
So I think this has a lot to do with, in the past, our country was heavily dependent, its economy, on agriculture. So even in early May, particularly in the northern states, you still have, some farmers are still trying to get crops in the ground. You've got, a lot of, freeze days still into early May. So I believe the reason for this was that they wanted to allow all parties essentially to be able to get their crops in the ground so that they would basically have the time in order to honor the fallen. That's my guess.
That's your guess. I don't have a buzzer for almost there, so I think I can do. What's that sound?
There we go.
All right, yeah, phone.
That works.
Somebody wants their answer back.
Phone a friend.
So you are close. You're taking that answer for that you got of why do we have Election Day on the day that we do that, and that was that was because of that. But why was it called Decorative Day originally? Decoration Day originally.
Yeah, what do we be for different metals, I suppose?
Well, that's what I thought at first too. No, the idea for Decoration Day was that we go to the grave sites and we decorate them. What do we decorate them with?
Flowers.
Flowers. Oh. So there are more flowers blooming in late May than there are in early May.
That makes sense.
That was the reason that they wanted to do it later in May, was so that more flowers would be available. Also, everyone just remember this, the National Moment of Remembrance is at 3 p.m. on Monday for 1 minute. And that was set up in 2000 by Carmela Laspada, and she founded it, and it was passed as an act of Congress. So wherever you are at 3 p.m. on Monday, maybe take a moment and just pause and think about all the sacrifices that have been made for why we are still here and why Old Glory is still waving after 200 and almost 50 years at this point.
I know.
All right, Garrett, so we're going to continue now with our topic, money mistakes and retirement planning, take 2.
Yeah, and this is an interesting one. This is where you and I may be putting on our best imitation of Dave Ramsey here.
All right.
Not paying off high interest debt before retirement. Think of like credit cards, that sort of thing. Yes. So what are your thoughts on that, Brice?
Well, there's good debt and there's bad debt. And while it's helpful if you even have your mortgage paid off, there are some good aspects about a mortgage. Usually those are not high interest. That's not what we're talking about here, though you could look at a mortgage rate now today and think that's high interest. But no, we're talking about high interest. So let's talk about credit cards here. You want to have this paid off, and I'm going to give you some numbers, and you'll see why you want to have this paid off. You do not want to be slaving away at trying to get high interest debt taken care of after you're retired and once you're on a fixed income. Garrett, do you know what the average credit card interest rate is now? I didn't know that until I looked this up for this show.
Oh, it's got to be higher than 15%, I would think.
It is 22.26%.
Holy moly.
All right, so let's do the math here. Let's say that you've got $5,000 in credit card debt. The minimum payment on that would likely be around $93, $92.87. We'll call it $93.
Okay.
If you're paying that off over the course of 360 months, which is what they allow you to stretch that payment out because they want to keep collecting that interest rate.
Jeez.
So the minimum payment would be around $93 a month. You would be paying $28,434 in interest alone on top of the $5,000.
That's so silly.
All right. Now, what if you simply doubled that payment?
Okay.
The minimum payment's $92. Let's say you take it to $200.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. $200 a month. You are now spending only $1,782 in interest, and you get that taken care of not in 360 payments, but 34 payments.
Wow. Okay. There you go.
There it
Almost
is.
like a little less than 3 years.
Yes.
It's done.
So just
Yeah.
double your payments
Yeah.
and you're getting it out of the way.
Yeah.
That is why you want to get that taken care of. Don't let that monkey be on your back. Now, again, we're not talking about mortgages here. We get that question all the time. Should I pay my mortgage off early? Well, let's do the math on it.
Yeah.
What's your interest rate? Somebody who's getting a mortgage now, those 2% or even 3% are gone.
Right.
Might be a while before they're back, but maybe at some point we'll be back to 4 or 5%. But even those right now are long gone. But if you're paying 7 or 8%, yeah. Just ask yourself, what is the average rate of return that I'm expecting on my investments through retirement? If it's 8 or 9, then no, you wouldn't pay that off. But I would like to talk to you about who's your financial advisor who's telling you that you're going to get 8 or 9%.
Yeah.
But maybe your interest rate is 2 or 3%. Don't be in a hurry to pay that off.
Right.
I mean, if it makes you feel better to be debt free, I get it. We can talk about that. But if you're trying to make financial gains by paying it off early, that's not the way to do it. Credit card, yes. Mortgage rates, no. All right, so that's that one right there. Not paying off high interest debt before retirement. The key there is high interest debt. Let's see if we can help you take care of that. All right, what's the next one we got to talk about here, Garrett?
So the next one here is, and a lot of people forget this, failing to understand what sequence of return risk is. And, essentially for that, really what I'd like to do is kind of paint the picture of two hypothetical families.
Great.
Let's call them the Hatfields and the McCoys.
Let's do it.
And sequence of return risk essentially says, well, you know what? Some things regarding investments, if you don't take care of them, are really just a luck of the draw. So let's take this hypothetical family. They've worked hard enough to save up about $500,000 for their retirement. Okay, good.
Both of them have.
Both families.
Both families
identical finances here, except for a few things we're going to talk about. So $500,000 starting the day of their retirement. Okay, good. They're going to plan for the market average annual net return of 9%. Okay, which is if you talk about, okay, what's the historical average of the S&P 500 in its history, around 9%. So, okay, fair enough.
Both of these families apparently are okay with high-risk investments in retirement.
Yep.
All right, so be it.
Yep. So going into retirement, we're just going to invest in the overall market, the S&P 500, 9% is what we're expecting. Okay. Now, here's the difference. The Hatfields, they suffer a significant market loss in the first year of retirement. Okay. The McCoys, however, they happen to have a very strong bull market. They don't have any significant market suffering until 21 years into retirement.
Okay.
It's a really long run of success. Okay. The results for the Hatfields are interesting. Over a 24-year retirement, they receive about $664,000. I should say that of that initial $500,000 that we save, we're only going to take out 4% per year to supplement our retirement. We've got Social Security and a few other things going on. They'll receive $664,000 off of their investment portfolio. Problem is that they run out of money completely by the time they're both age 89.
Okay.
Okay. The McCoys, who had that luck of the draw, if you will, drawing off of that same 4%, they will receive $950,000 over 30 years. And when they both pass away at age 95, they will leave $2.6 million left over to their children. So really what this says is that some of the most at-risk times to one's portfolio entering retirement is really that window in the first 5 years or so.
Yes.
Because at this point, we, in theory, our savings have reached their peak. We've got the most money we're going to have, at least from the career, from our working job, going into retirement. When we retire the job, now we've got to make the paycheck for ourselves. And how do we do that? Oftentimes we do that for a combination of Social Security, of course, and the distributions from our investment accounts to supplement our needs. If you have a market setback that's pushing your portfolio down and you're also doing the double whammy of taking distributions, you can see where the money starts to nosedive here pretty quickly. It's not as big a concern if the market is pushing all boats up on a rising tide and we're taking distributions. So there's the difference. You can really start to nosedive if you don't protect your portfolio in that first 5-year window of retirement.
Absolutely. It's vital at that time. It's not as vital protecting your portfolio when you are 85 or 90,
Right.
but boy, you've got to protect it when you first go into retirement and start taking
Exactly.
distributions. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have here this week. Once again, we are wishing everybody a solemn and thoughtful and relaxing Memorial Day weekend. We hope the rest of your week and your weekend is everything you want it to be. This is Brice Payne, along with Garrett Ray, the show's The Wealth Guardians, helping you retire the job and keep the paycheck. And this is News Talk 94.5, WPTI.